Hello everybody and welcome to a very special episode of Walking with Dinosaurs Breakdowns. Today I'm breaking down the Walking with Dinosaurs formerly lost pilot, which has recently resurfaced and been leaked. This pilot is very different from the final series, with a different narrator and soundtrack, as well as a very specific date and different font of text. This episode has many similarities to the episode of the final series, Cruel Sea. These include the featuring of Eustreptospondylus, Cryptoclydus, and Liopleurodon, as well as the Cryptoclydus hunting a fishbowl, and the Liopleurodon dying and becoming food for the Eustreptospondylus at the end. The episode is set 146.3 million years ago, meaning that none of the animals that appear in the episode would have been alive at the time. The episode is set in London rather than Oxford, and is filmed in Cyprus rather than the Bahamas, unlike Cruel Sea. This pterosaur takes the place that was filled by Rhamphorhynchus in Cruel Sea. Similarly to in Cruel Sea, this pterosaur skim feeds, which it could not have done in reality. The narration states that Cryptoclydus' ancestors returned to the ocean 100 million years before the episode setting. The first Sauropterygians, the aquatic reptile group containing Placodonts, Nothosaurs, Pachypleurosaurs, and the Plesiosaurs, evolved 247 million years ago, almost exactly 100 million years before the episode setting. Many shots of Liopleurodon from this episode are directly recreated in Cruel Sea. A X-ray scene appears on the Liopleurodon, a concept which does not appear in the final series, but is reused in the prequel series Walking with Monsters. X-ray shots are also used in When Dinosaurs Roamed America, a film-length documentary from 2001, which is very similar to Walking with Dinosaurs. The Liopleurodon is stated to be 20 meters in size, when the largest estimate in real life is at 10 meters, and that is, I believe, outdated and oversized. This mistake was due to fragmentary remains that were believed to have a 20-meter full size. The Eustreptospondylus is much more colourful than in Cruel Sea. This is because in Cruel Sea the aquatic reptiles have interesting colour palettes and patterning, showing their dominance over the drab dinosaur, whereas in this episode the dinosaur is colourful and the aquatic reptiles are drab. This is probably due to them wanting to show off dinosaurs in a pilot for a series named after them. The model and animation are too lizard-like in some scenes, especially the cut scenes. There are 2 minutes of missing footage from this pilot episode, which may include the footage of Eustreptospondylus and Cetiosaurus from the Trilogy of Life special documentary. The music from the scenes after the Liopleurodon dies and is eaten by the Eustreptospondylus is The Isle of the Dead, Opus 29, by Sergei Rachmaninoff. Hello everybody, this is the Chameleons. Welcome to our 200 subscriber special. Thank you, first of all, for getting me to 200 subscribers. Today I'll be breaking down the first episode of Walking with Dinosaurs, New Blood. Let's get into it. The iconic opening titles for the Dinosaurs have a fast, bombastic theme playing over footage of the dinosaurs that is transparent. It starts out with a sunset and the BBC logo, then shows a Stegosaurus, a Liopleurodon, a Diplodocus, an Ornitholestes, an Ornithochirus, then a Eustreptospondylus. In the background of these there are Rhamphorhynchus, then a Neurognathus, and finally T-Rex roars and the main titles appear. Interestingly enough, no creatures from the episode 5, Spirits of the Ice Forest, appear over the titles. Though the animation is mostly good, in some scenes animals walk through the border of the frame. The environment featured in this episode, which is based on the Ghost Ranch Formation in Arizona 220 million years ago, and was filmed in New Caledonia, is quite accurate. For the Triassic, it would not have had any grass, nor other flowering plants, and it would have had fern prairies and deserts, and been quite seasonal. Placerius is a Dicynodont from the late Cretaceous of North America. Placerius would not have been as common as shown in the episode, although the narrator does state that they are rare, so this may just be a rare herd of them around a water source. The narrator also states that Placerius is the last of its kind, but it was not the last Dicynodont, despite being the last one in North America, and quite late in time for a Dicynodont, though there were a few species that existed after. Coelophysis was a coelophysoid dinosaur from the late Cretaceous of North America. In this episode, Coelophysis is shown as eating its own young, which was based on a fossil of a small crocodilian-sized Coelophysis that was misidentified as a baby Coelophysis. Despite this, Coelophysis almost definitely was a cannibal, as almost all carnivorous animals are. Coelophysis did not evolve until millions of years after the episode is set, living in the very late Triassic and possibly even the early Jurassic. Like most theropods in the series, it also has pronated wrists, which means its wrists face towards its body instead of towards each other like it's going to clap. Cynodonts are a group of therapsids who are closely related to Cephalians. They are still alive today, containing all mammals. The cynodont in this series of Walking with Dinosaurs is a small, dog-like creature. Though not stated as such in this show, is identified as Thronaxodon in external materials. This creates an error though, because Thronaxodon lived much earlier in the Triassic and in Africa, not North America. But there are fossils from the time and place the episode is set of a cynodont named Catygidodon, but this was found over 20 years after the episode aired. Postosuchus was a Rauchisuchian Pseudosuchian archosaur from the late Triassic of North America. In Walking with Dinosaurs, Postosuchus is shown as a quadruped, when it was, in actual fact, an obligate biped. The Postosuchus is shown urinating, which many people have pointed out is inaccurate, but they are in fact wrong. There is actually evidence for other types of archosaurs urinating in the same way it does. Dinosaurs is only known from Europe, not North America, although the narration states that he is
exotic hunters from far and wide.
Though this is seemingly counteracted in this scene with the multiple Titanosaurus flying around the watering hole. It appears that a Titanosaurus puppet head has pycnofibers, which is accurate. Unfortunately, the same cannot be said about the 3D model. In this episode, 4 baby animals are killed. The female Silophysis eats a baby Cynodont. The Cynodonts eat their own young. A Silophysis eats a baby of its own kind. And finally, the Cynodont adults eat a baby Silophysis. In the death of the Prostosuchus scene, the injured Prostosuchus puppet appears not to have any pupils, which is something that the 3D model does have pupils. In the US version, the narrator states the Placerias were driven to extinction in the migration, whereas no such thing is said in the original British version. Similarly to the Prostosuchus, the Plateosaurus is shown as a quadruped, when in reality it was a biped. Plateosaurus did not occur in North America, rather it occurred in Europe, although Celosaurus, a problem similar to Plateosaurus, did live in the Americas. Plateosaurus also didn't evolve until after the episode is set. When the Plateosaurus arrive, a reprise of the song Time of Titans plays, referring to the fact that prosauropods, like Plateosaurus, will evolve into the giant sauropod featured in the next episode. Another fact about this episode is it starts out showing herds of Placerias and the occasional Silophysis, but ends with swarms of Silophysis and a herd of Plateosaurus, with the Placerias and Prostosuchus dead, signifying the dinosaurs taking over from the Pseudosuchians and the stem mammals. Hello everybody, this is the Chameleons, and welcome to the 220 subscriber special, in which I will be breaking down the second episode of Walking with Dinosaurs, Time of the Titans. Time of the Titans is set 152 million years ago in Colorado, USA, in what is now called the Morrison Formation, a massive formation that lasted for most of the late Jurassic and stretched across the entirety of North America. In the episode, the Morrison Formation is depicted as a lush region with fern, prairies, and coniferous forests filmed in redwoods of modern California. This is a very inaccurate depiction, which is fixed in the later special, The Ballad of Big, and I will talk about it more in that one. This episode features dung beetles feeding on Diplodocus dung, but this is inaccurate, as dung beetles were not around in the Jurassic and did not in fact evolve until the Cretaceous period. At the start of the episode, Diplodocus is seen using an egg tube or ovipositor to lay eggs. This was based on a turtle and speculative, and was therefore very unlikely to have been real. The Diplodocus would not have taken 10 years to mature, rather it would have taken a minimum of 20 to 40 years, but possibly up to 60 or 70 years. Neurognathus was found in Germany, not the USA, although the ones featured in the episode could be Mesodactylus, which is believed to have been an neurognathid, and which did live in the Morrison Formation. The Neurognathus looks less like an Neurognathus and more like a deformed Dinosaurs. In reality, a Neurognathus was very similar to, and filled the same niche as, a modern microbat, as opposed to the oxpecker-like role it has in the show. It is very unlikely that Ornitholestes had a nasal crest as shown in this show, due to that being a presumed feature, but it was actually caused by crushing on the snout of the only skull found. The Ornitholestes should also have small sickle claws on its feet, similar to a raptor, and despite it being the first feathered creature in this show and one of the only feathered dinosaurs in the whole series, its feathering is not good enough. Instead of just quills, it should have a full feather coating covering its body, but although possibly not its head and neck. It also, once again, has pronated hands, which you could not do in real life. This episode features one scene of infanticide, where the Ornitholestes kills and eats a baby Diplodocus. While using a Diplodocus head puppet for filming, the production crew discovered that the most efficient way for these Diplodocus to eat was by stripping the leaves and ferns off with their teeth. The Stegosaurus is depicted as having very long back legs, especially compared to its forelegs. And while its back legs were in reality longer than its front legs, the recent discovery of Sophie the Stegosaurus has shown that they were a lot shorter, which is more in line with other Stegosaur genera. Its plates were covered in a horny sheath rather than skin, meaning that it could not flush them with blood, unlike as is depicted in the show. Despite it only making a glorified cameo in the episode, the Brachiosaurus has so many inaccuracies that it gets its own creature profile. It may well be the most inaccurate creature in the show, but it definitely is the most inaccurate creature in the episode. This Brachiosaurus is based on the African Brachiosaurus bronchi, now Giraffa titan, and though Giraffa titan bronchi and Brachiosaurus altithorax, the only current species of Brachiosaurus, are related, they differ in several ways, but I am too small-brained to understand these and explain them to you. The Brachiosaurus's head bump is shown as a thin structure, which was a common depiction in the 90s, but it is now believed to have been covered by a soft tissue structure. The Brachiosaurus is given a weight estimate twice the highest estimate, 70 tons compared to the realistic 37 tons. It is also stated to have been the largest land animal ever, but that title belongs to the Argentinosaurus. Some people would say that the largest dinosaur ever is Patagotitan, but they misunderstand the meaning of largest. Patagotitan is the longest dinosaur ever, the longest land animal ever, but it is not largest, because largest is a combination of length and weight, and the Argentinosaurus is much heavier than the Patagotitan. The legs and torso of the Brachiosaurus should be much thicker, this as well as having a shorter tail. This is a much more modern view of macronarians, which which only came about in the late 2000s until now. And we have finally gotten to the lion of the Jurassic, the Allosaurus. In this episode, the Allosaurus' skull is really weird shaped and looks nothing like in the actual animal. This was due to it being strangely reconstructed in the late 90s, but this depiction was weird even for that, which was why it was changed, but still inaccurate compared to the modern depiction for the Ballad of Big. It is also strength-wrapped and said to be the top predator in the Morrison Formation, but in reality that was the larger, rarer megalosauroid, Torvosaurus, which does not appear in either this nor the Ballad of Big. Hello, welcome to my 200 episode special, a breakdown of the third episode of Walk of Dinosaurs, Cruel Sea. And thank you for getting me to this many subscribers so quickly. I was already at this price before the 220 subscriber special came out, and I expect to be at 260 subscribers by the time this one comes out, meaning after a breakdown of Giant of the Skies. So I'll get on that pretty soon. And now, into the breakdown. It's a pretty well-known fact that the iconic opening scene of this episode, which is probably the best opening of any episode of this, that it is based on footage of orcas attacking seals on a beach. But, unfortunately, the scene makes no logical sense, as it would be impossible for the Liopleurodon to get that close into the shore to grab the Ostreptus bondulus. It would have been caught on a rock or a reef and beached itself. Speaking of the Ostreptus bondulus, it has the wrong head. Its head model is based on the Allosaurus head model, though it looks different from it, but it is based off the original model, when it was not actually that closely related to Allosaurus and was in fact a megalosauroid, which, if it only had a minor appearance in the episode, it would be fine to reuse the Allosaurus model. But it doesn't. It's one of the main creatures in the episode, so it should have had a unique model. It is also smaller in the show than the full-sized adult would have been in real life. And an interesting thing is that the color scheme of it is quite drab and brown, which represents that the dinosaurs are less important in this episode than the more interestingly patterned and coloured aquatic reptiles. But the Ostreptus bondulus starts out being eaten by the Liopleurodon, but like the Coelophysis in the first episode, they become more prevalent throughout the episode and eventually end up eating the Liopleurodon. And the Ostreptus bondulus was filmed using a prop head in the water and a person running across a beach, placing footprints using weird boot things that they had to wear. Now to get to probably the best designed creature, and also the most inaccurate, Liopleurodon, which is massively oversized, with it being said to be 25 meter long, when the largest estimate in real life is at 10 meters, and that is, I believe, outdated and oversized. This mistake was due to fragmentary remains that were believed to have a 20-meter full size, but they said, well, it's unlikely that this fossil is going to be the largest one that ever lived, so it's possible it could have gone to 25 meters in size. The modern estimates of those fossils have been scaled down to a maximum of 15 meters, and they are fragmentary and not confirmed to belong to Liopleurodon. It also should have a tail fluke, which the Cryptoclydus should also have, and this color scheme is iconic, and it's become basically the main color scheme used for almost all Liopleurodons, and often other pliosaurs in any type of media. Also, in some of the underwater scenes, it was filmed using a scale model in slow-mo to show its massive size. Cryptoclydus, like mentioned earlier, should have a tail fin. It is almost impossible that any plesiosaur, other than a very basic one, could go on land. This in the show was based on a theory at the time that the plastron of the plesiosaurs protected their organs from being crushed by their bulk on land. In a spin-off series, Walking with Dinosaurs Short Bites, which was a series of short clips focusing on each major creature, the Cryptoclydus makes a minor appearance in the Ophthalmosaurus episode, but in this episode it is called just a plesiosaur. In the series, Cryptoclydus is shown eating rocks, which another plesiosaur, Turangisaurus, is shown to do in Prehistoric Planet. It is possible this is a reference, as almost all aquatic creature episodes in any dinosaur documentary since Walking with Dinosaurs either reference cruel sea or go out of their way to do something different to it. Well, they appear Perisphinctes, which is the ammonite, Leptolepis, which is these fish, and Cylindrochithes, which is called a squid, despite it being a squid-like belemnite species. All appear in the episode, but are not named. The footage of the Cryptoclydus hunting the Leptolepis is actually edited footage of penguins and tuna hunting herrings. It is possible that some ichthyosaurs may have been completely black, as there is some fossil evidence of ichthyosaurs with discovered pigments that were this colour, but it was almost definitely not all ichthyosaurs, and Ophthalmosaurus was not one of the species found in the sample. Rhamphorhynchus is shown skim feeding in the episode, something it could not do in the episode, as its brittle beak would have broken. The toothy projections on the tip of its beak, though they were found in the real animal, did not look as strange as they do in the episode. There is an instance of its fanticide in this episode when the Rhamphorhynchus eats the bark beetle larvae. This episode is highly inspired by the pilot episode of Walking with Dinosaurs. Despite the episode being set 149 million years ago, the only major creature that would have lived at this time was Rhamphorhynchus. reason why the episode was set at this time and not earlier when the other creatures cohabitated was because then it would chronologically have come before Time of the Titans, which would have made the pacing and overall arcing plot between those two episodes make no sense, as it would have ruined New Blood ending with the Plateosaurus arriving, which sets up the Diplodocus being the main creature in Time of the Titans. The Hybodus, which will get a creature profile in my breakdown of sea monsters, was mistaken for a real shark by some viewers, which it is not. It is made entirely with CGI. This episode was filmed in the Bahamas, and some of the islands, specifically the one where this scene was filmed, were covered in highly venomous snake snakes, which were luckily quite docile and very tiny, barely being able to fit a human toe in their mouth. Hello everybody, welcome to the 260 subscriber special Companions. This is going to be a breakdown for episode 4 of Walking with Dinosaurs, Giant of the Skies. I guess the same as usual, thank you for getting me to this many subscribers, and enjoy the video. Although every episode other than Spirits of the Ice Forest features at least one named pterosaur, this is the only one that focuses on one as the main character. The dead Ornithochirus at the start is the largest practical model created for the entirety of Walking with Dinosaurs. Ornithochirus featured in the episode is Ornithochirus mesembrinus, which has now been reclassified as Tropiognathus mesembrinus. Ornithochirus was once a wastebasket taxa, with species found all around the world, which led to the idea that it was migratory. These species have now been separated into multiple different genera. It is very unlikely that Ornithochirus had sexual dimorphism, as what was thought to be different biological sexes within the same species was actually different genera from around the world. The highest estimates for Ornithochirus put its wingspan at 9 meters, not the 13 meters that the show claims, meaning it was not actually the biggest creature ever to fly, a title which belongs to either Hatzegopteryx or Quetzalcoatlus. When the Ornithochirus walks, it is cumbersome and unwieldy, but in reality pterosaurs are believed to have walked in a much more agile way. The wings of Ornithochirus and Tapejara fold upward while on the ground in the series, rather than backwards, like in reality, where they would have been backwards. Ornithochirus is shown skim feeding, which was an outdated theory that its snout crests would have served a purpose similar to a keel on a ship. In fact, Tropiognathus means keel jaw. The episode states that Ornithochirus could not fly in the rain, which was most likely not true. The Ornithochirus and Tapejara should have a much denser coating of pycnon fibers than is shown in the program. Both Ornithochirus and Tapejara lived 22 and 15 million years after the episode is set, respectively. At one point point, one of the cars lands feet first, when, in reality, it would have landed on all four of its limbs. The species of Tapejara featured in the episode, T. imperator, has been reclassified into the related genus Tupandactylus. Tapejara was most likely to be a forest-living frugivore, not a coastal piscivore. Tapejara should have longer legs and slightly smaller wings than is shown in the episode. Tapejara is shown having ridges on its crest, but in reality its crest would have been smooth. It is unlikely that Tapejara would have been sexually dimorphic. The head crest of T. imperator was actually much larger and more rounded than was depicted in the show. Due to another wastepack basket taxon situation, iguanodons all over the world were lumped into the genus Iguanodon. The North American iguanodon in this episode has since been reclassified within a new genus, Dicotyledon. Both Dicotyledon and the European iguanodon should be more strongly limbed and should have heftier forelimbs. The iguanodons in this episode have more sloped backs than the flat backs they would have had in real life. The iguanodons are stated as being the first dinosaurs to chew food, but in fact, the heterodontosaurids, which lived around 60 million years before these iguanodons, were the first dinosaurs to chew food. This scene of the Dicotyledon on the beach took over 1 year to film and edit, as they had to get people to walk and then make all of the footprints on the beach, and then had to film it with the helicopter and edit it so that they walk precisely in with the footprints and don't move weirdly compared to the movement of the helicopter. It is based on the Dinosaur Ridge site, where the trackways of an ornithopod, possibly Eolambia, were found. This trackway is in modern-day Colorado. It is stated in the episode that the first flowering plants evolved in the early Cretaceous. If this script was written a few years ago rather than yesterday, I would have pointed out that the oldest known flowering plant was actually from the early Jurassic of China, but this has been reclassified as a conifer, a much older lineage of plants, meaning that this episode was in fact accurate. The European iguanodon is still classified within the genus Iguanodon. Both iguanodons should have inward-facing palms while walking. Polycanthus is depicted as living in both North America and Europe. This is due to the theory at the time that Hoplitosaurus from North America was a synonym of the British Polycanthus. Unlike the iguanodonts, which were believed to be different species in the same genus, the Polycanthus were both believed to belong to Polycanthus foxii, hence them having the same design on both continents, although it appears that they have slight differences in the patterning, but the same coloration. This is made even more confusing, as in the American version of the episode, this creature is referred to as Gastonia. The head of the Polycanthus should be shorter, more triangular and beaked. its legs are also too long compared to its body size. The Utahraptor is seen on the Isle of Wight in the episode, when it only occurred in Utah in the United States in reality. This is because iguanodon volcanoes were both thought to be found in both North America and Europe, so it was speculated that Utahraptor would be found on both as well, as no dromaeosaurs were known from Bohemian Europe. But, more recently, Ornithodesmus and an unidentified large dromaeosaur are known from mainland Europe during this time period. In 2021, Vectiraptor was discovered on the Isle of Wight in the Bohemian, where this segment is set. Utahraptor was not as well known in the late 90s, so the model was based on other dromaeosaurs, when in reality it was much bulkier than its close relatives and the model in the series. Just like all raptors, Utahraptor should have a full feather coating and no pronated hands. Utahraptor was up to 7 meters long at maximum, rather than the 5 meters maximum stated in the episode. Utahraptor lived 5 to 10 million years before the episode was set, but Vectiraptor lived at the exact time to appear in the episode. The Utahraptors are depicted hunting in a pack, a common trope in paleomedia, but is incredibly unlikely. At most, they may have hunted in disorganized gangs, similarly to a Komodo dragon. Utahraptor is able to move its tongue in the program, but in real life, dinosaurs would have had immobile tongues, other than the closest related ones to birds, which may have included this. The fact that the Utahraptors hunt is unsuccessful references the fact that 1/3 of all hunts in real life are unsuccessful. The music from the scene where the Utahraptors hunt the iguanodon is a modified version of the track Torosaurus Lock Horns. Iberomysaurus is only known to Spain rather than the Isle of Wight, though there are possible enantiornithine teeth known from the Isle of Wight at the time this episode is set. Iberomysaurus is depicted with many modern bird features that real enantiornithines wouldn't have had, such as scaly legs, when in reality they would have been fully feathered. It also may not have had a tail fan, and if it did, it would not have been able to fan it. Iberomysaurus is shown nesting in trees, but enantiornithines are believed to have nested, similarly to megapods, on the ground. The episode accurately states that enantiornithines, such as Iberomysaurus and other birds, are dinosaurs, but it pushes the outdated narrative that birds outcompeted pterosaurs. This is symbolized at one point when the Iberomysaurus chase away the Ornithocheirus male. Comparing screen time to an accuracy, this Plesiopleurodon is probably the least accurate creature in the entire series, as it appears, for no joke, 7 seconds. Plesiopleurodon lived 29 million years after the episode's setting. This is even more confusing in the American version, where it is referred to as Liopleurodon, which went extinct 28 million years before the episode's setting. Plesiopleurodon is just a recolored Liopleurodon. Hence, it has the same inaccuracies, the huge size, the lack of tail fluke, which carry over from the previous episode. Plesiopleurodon is actually a polycotyledon, a Cretaceous sister group to Leptoclidans, rather than a pliosaur like Liopleurodon, but it was named after Liopleurodon due to its similarities to it. This unidentified pterosaur, which may be Corkycephalus, doesn't have any unique inaccuracies, but I can combine two entries and talk about the inaccuracies shared by all pterosaurs in this series, which are that they have not enough pycnofibers and have pointed wings rather than rounded ones. They also fold inwards rather than backwards, but I've already pointed that out in this episode. The death of the old male begins the trend of the fourth episode of Impossible Pictures Productions being the saddest, a trend which is followed in Prehistoric Park and the first season of Primeval, as well as Walking with Beasts and the second season of Primeval to an extent. Hello everybody, and welcome to my 270 subscriber special, the breakdown of the fifth and my favourite episode of Walking with Dinosaurs, Spirits of the Ice Forest. The episode claims to be set in Antarctica, but almost all the creatures would have occurred in the far south of Australia, which, although it experienced the midnight sun, was not Antarctica. They were, at the time though, connected, and this episode is set in the Rift Valley, where they would have been connected. It is believed that Leoninosaura was not able to hibernate. Leoninosaura probably had a thick coat of feathers to keep it warm, as many cold living dinosaurs had feathers, but some recent studies show that feathers may not have been necessary for dinosaurs living in the Antarctic and Arctic circles. The last record of Leoninosaura fossils is 4 million years before the episode's setting, but it is possible it could have survived until when the episode is set. Leoninosaurus' tail should be much longer, making up 3/4 of its total body length. Coolosuchus lived 16 million years before the episode's setting of 106 million years ago in the Aptian rather than the Albion. Though it is true that temnospondyls only survived as long as they did because of isolation from crocodiles, Coolosuchus is not believed to have gone extinct due to the warming of the South Pole, allowing crocodiles to take a niche. The fact that Coolosuchus is stated to have gone extinct due to the South Pole warming appears to contradict with the idea that these polar dinosaurs went extinct due to continued cooling, an episode that is stated at the very end of the episode. Coolosuchus probably didn't attack like a crocodile. It would more likely have attacked like modern amphibians such as Newton's salamanders, using a suction method. This episode is the only episode that doesn't feature a named pterosaur, but this unknown pterosaur, possibly Mythunga, which uses the Corkycephalus model from last episode, it appears. At the time the series was made, there were no named pterosaurs from the early Cretaceous of Australia, as they have mostly been named in the last decade. This creature is based on an ankle bone of Australovenator from New South Wales and Queensland, which was thought to be an allosaur, but was more recently reclassified as a Megaraptoran. A group of theropods, whose placement on the theropod family tree is unclear, with them being believed by some to be an allosauroid, and others to be a tyrannosaurid, and others even to be a basal carnosaur. More recently, in 2020, a specimen that has been assigned to Australovenator was discovered in southern Victoria, near where this episode is set. The real Australovenator should be more slender, have a longer, thinner snout, and should probably have feathers. Barosaurus should probably be less robust, but I personally have seen some interesting, more chunkier restorations. It should also be depicted as bipedal, rather than alternating between biped and quadruped, but this was debated at the time of production, and there are some fossil displays that still depict it as quadrupedal, including the one in the Melbourne Museum, which I quite recently visited. There is no evidence that Barosaurus was migratory, but it is plausible that hadrosaurs and their closest relatives, including Barosaurus, were the most likely non-avian dinosaurs to be migratory. Barosaurus would not have had thumb claws. A giant weta is any species in the genus Dinosaurs, which dates back to the Triassic period, 190 million years ago. The species that appears in this episode is not specified. It is stated that tuataras evolved in the Triassic, but tuatara refers to any species in the genus Sphenodon, with the only known species being S. punctatus. The genus Sphenodon evolved in the early Miocene, 19 million years ago, but Sphenodontids, the family that tuatara belongs to, evolved in the Triassic. There are no Sphenodontids known from the early Cretaceous of Australia, Antarctica, or even New Zealand. The closest thing is Tika giriachinoi from the very early late Cretaceous of South America. Tika is also a sister species genus to Sphenodon. The Steropodon is live-acted by a coati relative of raccoons, when in reality it was a monotone quite similar to a platypus. Steropodon lived in New South Wales, not Victoria, but a relative, Cryorinctes, lived at around time and place. It is stated during the credits that the South Pole got colder, causing these creatures to go extinct, but in reality it got warmer continuously until the freezing of Antarctica in the Eocene. Well, here we are, almost 8 months and 100 subscribers later, my 300 subscriber special, and the breakdown of the final episode of Walking with Dinosaurs, Death of a Dynasty. Thank you for getting me to 300 subscribers, and let's get into the breakdown. As seen earlier in the video, the opening title reveal is probably the greatest in the whole series, with the solitary mother T-Rex roaring over a orange landscape. The episode is stated to take place 65 million years ago, but this was actually in the earliest Paleogene epoch, not the latest Maastrichtian, as more recently estimates of the KPG extinction have been estimated to be 66 million years ago rather than 65. Hell Creek Formation in the Maastrichtian was actually a swampy environment like shown in Prehistoric Planet rather than a desolate ash field, which was filmed for this episode in Chile. The Didelphodon should look more like an otter than a Tasmanian devil or badger as it appears in the show. It also was most likely Duraphagous rather than eating eggs and embryos as shown in the series. Despite being quite small, the head prop for the Didelphodon required 3 people to operate it. It also had remote control nostrils. The T-Rex's hands should not pronate. The growth rate of Tyrannosaurus rex was actually quite slow, being similar to humans in fact, so the chicks would definitely not have been 1 meter long at 1 month old as shown in the show. Tyrannosaurus rex's head would have been much longer, less boxy and cubed, and more rounded, and would have had osteoderms around the eyes. Tyrannosaurus rex probably could not roar, as it lacked a complex vocal apparatus, and it would have made snarling or hissing sounds. The brooding behavior of T-Rex, nodding for months while protecting the eggs, appears to be based on ratites, such as emus and ostriches. It is interesting how different animals are shown to have different brooding behaviors, like Diplodocus are shown to abandon their eggs, bury and abandon their eggs like turtles. The T-Rex is shown to behave like ratites, and the Leelinosaura are shown to behave like megapods. This dead mammal is believed to be Purgatorius, the early ancestor of primates. Some people have identified this unidentified theropod corpse as Nanotyrannus, but that has been reclassified as a young T-Rex, and it does not look like the baby T-Rex model. Yes, I know you're all going to be saying it, the Nanotyrannus study, but this video was also written like spring for me, which is autumn for people in the Northern Hemisphere, of 2023. So the Nanotyrannus study had not come out, but basically there has been, since this video was written, a much more credible study about Nanotyrannus, which might have proved it correct and valid, but it's not 100% a valid study. So it's still possible Nanotyrannus was a baby T-Rex. But go back to your previously scheduled content. Other theropods from the Hell Creek Formation that it could be are Achiroraptor, Paranicodon, Pictinodon, Richard Eastdesdesia, or a young Dakotaraptor. Although true butterflies didn't evolve until the Paleogene, Lepidopterans, which is the group butterflies moths belong to, date back to the Jurassic. For some reason, the US version of the series labels the Thescelosaurus as Hypsilophodon, and Ornithischian which lived 60 million years before the episode was set, in Britain rather than in the USA. The Thesalosaurus also uses a recolor of the Leelinosaura, Ophthalia, and Dryosaurus model. Another titan has now been reclassified as a species of Edmontosaurus, Edmontosaurus annectans. Edmontosaurus and other hadrosaurs did not have thumb spikes, and in fact had large hooves on their hands. The thumb spikes are a result of it reusing the Iguanodon and Muttaburrasaurus model, but slightly modified, and the lack of hooves, is due to that not being discovered yet. It is correctly stated that hadrosaurs were some of the most common dinosaurs in the late Cretaceous. Edmontosaurus is very small in the series, shown to be much smaller than T-Rex, when it was in fact the biggest creature known from the Hell Creek Formation. This dromaeosaur, or raptor, is unidentified in the UK version. In the US version, it is identified as Dromaeosaurus, which went extinct 3 million years before the episode's setting, and lived in Alaska and Canada, not the mainland USA. It may be Dakotaraptor, which lived in Hell Creek at the right time, but it is possible that Dakotaraptor was chimeric, containing bones of a turtle as well as of a raptor. No matter what species it is, it should have feathers and non-pronated wrists, and it uses a modified version of the Utahraptor model with different colours. Though no height estimate is given in the show, we can tell by comparing it to T-Rex that the Ankylosaurus is too tall, being 2.5 to 3 meters tall rather than just over 2 meters tall. It is unlikely that Ankylosaurus could kill a T-Rex using a single strike of a tail club. Its back should be flatter, which probably leads to the excess height as well as its legs being too long. Its osteoderms should also be rounder and flatter. The Torosaurus and Triceratops most likely had quills in its tail, based on evidence found from its relative Psittacosaurus. The way the Torosaurus used their horns is based on modern horned animals such as deer and gazelle. The scene of the T-Rex eating a Triceratops is based on an actual fossil of a Triceratops, with bite marks identified to belong to a Tyrannosaurus rex in it. Quetzalcoatlus reuses a modified Ornithocaris model, with a small crest on the head and the keels on its beak removed. It should have a much longer and thicker neck, as well as same with the beak. It should walk in a much more upright stance, and should have a large, rounded crest at the top of the head, rather than a small pointed one at the back. The series states that pterosaurs were almost extinct at the end of the Maastrichtian, but this has been proved untrue, with multiple families known from the latest Cretaceous, with Asdarchids being the most common. It should have pycnofibers and rounded backward folding wings, which are mistakes carried on from the Ornithocaris. Quetzalcoatlus is not known from Hell Creek, but there is an unnamed Asdarchid, which is most likely a Quetzalcoatline, known from Hell Creek. Quetzalcoatlus also appears in the Walking with Dinosaurs movie, where it is more accurate, but still not perfect. Crocodile is often identified as Deinosuchus, including in the DVD special features, but it is too small and Dinosaurs went extinct 7 million years before the episode's setting. It also has the wrong snout shape, with a more long snout, when Dinosaurs had a much thicker alligator-like snout. 3 crocodilians, Borealosuchus, Brachychampsa, and Thoracosuchus, all occurred at the right time and place to be this crocodile, but the first 2 were too small to be the crocodile. Therefore, Thoracosuchus is the best candidate. This episode has an instance of infanticide when the dromaeosaurs eat the baby Torosaurus. This snake, played by a red-tailed boa, is identified as Deinonychia in external media, but this genus lived 19 million years before the episode setting and in South America, not North America. Cerberophus, however, lived at the right place and time to be this snake. It has been estimated that most dinosaurs were in eggs for 3 to 6 months, and at the end of the episode, the chicks are around 1 month old, meaning this episode takes place over 4 to 8 months of time. The music from during and after the meteorite strike is the opening of the track Giant of the Skies. "23 years ago to the day, Walking with Dinosaurs special, the Ballad of Big released. And today, in my 2023 Christmas special, I will be breaking this episode down. This episode, which is known simply as Allosaurus in the USA, is quite similar to Time of the Titans, the second episode, Walk with Dinosaurs, featuring mostly the same creatures and being set in the same formation, the Morrison Formation, but 7 million years later. In fact, the look of the Morrison Formation is much more accurate in this one, being more of a dry desert environment rather than a network of plains and forests. Al is the first named character in the Walking With series. Big Al was actually a member of the recently discovered species Allosaurus jimadseni, but as this was discovered only recently in the episode, he is depicted as being the younger type species Allosaurus fragilis. Allosaurus lived 155 to 152 million years ago, not 145, ironically meaning Al could have appeared in Time of the Titans. There are 2 other Allosaurus jimadseni specimens named after Big Al 2 and Little Al. with little Al being a juvenile Allosaurus. Al is depicted as being around 9 meters long, when the specimen is actually 7.5 meters long. I don't know how they made that mistake, since the footage for the opening actually includes footage of the real skeleton, so you'd think they could have just measured it. Due to Allosaurus not being sexually dimorphic, which we know due to very many specimens of Allosaurus being known, its biological sex cannot be known, so there is no evidence for Al being a male. Allosaurus was redesigned for this special to be more accurate, but its head is still slightly off-looking. No Allosaurus specimens are as big as the 10-meter-long female. It is possible that this female is supposed to represent Allosaurus maximus, which is either a massive species of Allosaurus, or more likely its own genus, Saurophaganax. The Allosaurus is still shrink-wrapped, if less so, but it does have unpronated wrists. There is an instance of infanticide in this episode, which is also cannibalism, like in New Blood, where the adolescent Allosaurus eats a baby. The unnamed pterosaur in the scene may be Mesodactylus or a Neognathus, as it uses the model from Time of the Titans. If so, the inaccuracies from then continue to carry over. If it's a Neognathus, then that was known for Germany, not the USA. And it also looks much more like a modified Dinosaurs than an actual Neognathus, which again looked quite bat-like. If it is Mesodactylus, then it did live in the right time and place to appear in this episode. These predator trap scenes are based on an outdated interpretation of the Cleveland Lloyd Quarry, a quarry which has very many Allosaurus specimens, but not many herbivores. The original interpretation was that it was a predator trap, luring in the Allosaurus due to the corpses of trapped herbivores, which the Allosaurus would then in turn trap themselves. This is not believed to be true, as the most modern interpretation is that it was a waterhole in a drought which dried up over time, and as it dried up, the Allosaurus kept converging there for the last water, and the herbivores stayed away, causing there to only be Allosaurus, and they had to cannibalize or starve, which is why there are mainly large specimens known from that quarry. The model from Time of the Titans is reused, meaning that the same inaccuracies from that episode continues. The fact that it is based on Brachiosaurus bronchi, now Giraffe Titan bronchi, and though Giraffe Titan bronchi and Brachiosaurus ultithorax, the only current species of Brachiosaurus, are quite closely related, they differ quite significantly, especially in the skull shape. The head bump is shown as a thin structure, like a crest, which was a common depiction in the 90s, as a similar, but not the same, kind of structure appeared in Jurassic Park, also in the 90s. It is now believed to have been covered in a large soft tissue structure, giving the head a much more rounded shape. The legs and torso should be thicker. It should have a much shorter tail. There is a scene where the Brachiosaurus is in the water, which is most likely a reference to the outdated depiction of sauropods as aquatic or semi-aquatic. Brachiosaurus was also extinct around 5 million years before the episode's setting. The Stegosaurus is also reused from Time of the Titans, and again has the same inaccuracies, such as it being depicted as having very long back legs, which, although it did have long back legs in reality, were definitely not as long compared to the other front legs as it is shown in this episode. Stegosaurus also lived at the right time and place to appear in this special. Due to Diplodocus only appearing in the Battle of the Salt Plains scene, Apatosaurus uses a modified Diplodocus model takes its place. The main change between the models is that Apatosaurus doesn't have spikes on its back. Though they were quite closely related, Apatosaurus and Apatosaurine has quite a few differences to Diplodocus, a diplodocine. Apatosaurus should have a much longer and flatter head, should be much more slender in the body and tail, should not have the strange hump at the shoulders, and should have a much longer neck with a comparatively smaller head on the end. Apatosaurus is only known from 152 to 100 million years ago, meaning it was already extinct by the time this episode was set, but lived at the right time to appear in Time of the Titans. Dinosaurs originally made a cameo in Time of the Titans in the forests. It reuses a recolored version of the model used for Leelinosaura, Orthnelia, and Thistlesaurus. It lived at the right place and time to appear in this episode. Ornitholestes also returns from its appearance in Time of the Titans, and once again it uses the same model, meaning it still has the same inaccurate nasal crest, which was based on the original fossil skull being broken in a way that appeared to be a crest. It still doesn't have sickle claws, and it still doesn't have full feather coating. At least it has quills, and it should also not have pronated hands. It also lived and went extinct 9 million years before this episode's setting, meaning it would have been long extinct, and possibly even extinct before the setting of Time of the Titans. Dragonflies first evolved in the Silurian stage of the early Jurassic, and would therefore have been around by the Dithonian when this was set. There are no dragonfly fossils known from the Morrison Formation, but this certainly does not mean that there were none there, just that there are none that were fossilized. Axolotls appear, despite the fact that axolotls only evolved very recently, approximately 10,000 years ago, and only occur in caves in Mexico, not swamps in Wyoming. It is possible that these are just young salamanders of a different genus, which is possible because the suborder that axolotls belong to, the advanced salamanders, date back to 157 million years ago. There is a salamander known from the Morrison Formation, Iridotriton, but it is a primitive salamander, or cryptobranchoid, not an advanced salamander, or salamandroid. It was also extinct by the time of the episode's setting. Scorpions date back to the Silurian period, as shown in Walking with Monsters, but there are no scorpion fossils known from the Morrison Formation. It's hard to tell, but Othniela may have made a minor appearance in Time of the Titans alongside the Dinosaurs due to the fact that their models look almost identical. The genus name Othniela is now invalid, being known as Dinosaurs now. The Othniela, or Dinosaurus, is shown with the exact same model as Dinosaurus, just recolored, meaning it is shown as the same size as Dinosaurus, when, in reality, Dinosaurus was approximately 3 meters long, Dinosaurus was approximately 2 to 2.8 meters long. Both Dinosaurus and Dinosaurus should probably be feathered. Dinosaurus went extinct approximately 3 million years before the episode's setting. This little lizard, which appears briefly before being eaten by owl, is Paramacilodus, a syncomorph or skinkomorph from the late Jurassic of North America. It lived at the right place and time to appear in this episode, but it is live-acted by a Chinese water dragon and a garment lizard distantly related to the basal syncomorph Paramacilodus. Paramacilodus would have been related much more similar to its relatives, the modern skinks, and not look like the very derived lizard, the Chinese water dragon. Diplodocus appears in this special in the iconic Battle of the Salt Plains scene. It reuses its model from Time of the Titans, which does have a few inaccuracies, similar to the Apatosaurus. It should have much less of a hump on its back, as well as a much longer, thinner neck, and it is most likely that it would only have had large spikes on its back and not on its neck, and almost definitely not on its tail. Its head is mostly the right shape, but the crest-like structure should not extend down the whole head, which should instead be just above the eyes. Other than that, it's quite accurate, but it was extinct at the time the episode was set, although it was alive at the setting of Time of the Titans. Thank you for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, leave a like. If you want to, go down and subscribe. If I missed anything, leave a suggestion in the comments. Merry Christmas, and I will see you for the next one. Goodbye.
Thank you.